Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining today's Resideo webinar session, where we are going to be providing an overview of the Honeywell Home branded UV air purification products for you. And we're also going to be sharing a bit of a brief overview of our air filtration portfolio as well. My name is Jamie Quanroot, and I'm part of the Resideo Academy team. And on behalf of all of us here today, I'd like to welcome you to our training session. Information on our webinar sessions are posted on our website at resideo.com/webinars. And the schedule for our upcoming September and October sessions are live and posted on the website. And you can find information on upcoming webinars by searching under the discipline tab by either HVAC or plumbing on the left-hand side of that search bar. And then we also record each of our training sessions, and you can find those recorded sessions on this same website by selecting on demand on the right-hand side of those filters as well. For our contractors who are joining us for today's live session, and you are interested in earning one NATE continuing education credit, there are just a few things to note. If you provided your NATE ID on your registration form, we submit those details to NATE for your attendance of the live session today, and we won't need any additional information from you at this time. However, if you did not provide us with your NATE ID on your registration form for today's webinar, and you'd like to receive credit for attending our live session, we do ask that you email your first name, your last name, your NATE ID, and the date of the session that you attended to homes.university@resideo.com within 1 week from today. This information is submitted to NATE 1 week following the close of each live session. And any requests that are sent outside of 1 week from our live training sessions cannot be processed. And then just as a reminder, we can only process requests for NATE credits when you attend the live webinar sessions, and we are unable to process requests for watching any of our recorded versions of our sessions. If you'd like more information about the NATE program, please visit their website at www.natex.org. And then one quick note before we begin our technical overview today, all of our attendees are muted. However, if at any point during our technical overview you'd like to ask a question, please go ahead and use the Q&A feature that is found in your Zoom webinar controls. We have saved the last few minutes of our time together today to answer any questions that you might have. So as we progress through our technical training today, make sure to ask those questions in that Q&A feature so that we can address those at the end of our session today. We're going to turn things over to Tegan Thostenson, who is one of our territory managers in the Pennsylvania market. He's going to be sharing his knowledge with all of us today. So Tegan, we're going to turn things over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie, and thanks everyone for joining today. So this is just a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. As Jamie said, we're going to talk about the air purification in our UV portfolio with a little bit of filtration. And we'll have a little bit of a Q&A at the end. So first things first, I want to just highlight how here at Resideo with our Honeywell Home products, we have it all for IAQ for what you will need. So we have our humidification control, we have ventilation. On the right side there, our air purification, air filtration is what we're going to be focusing on today, as well as a little bit about controls. But we do have all of the webinars that we've hosted in the past on demand, like Jamie said, and in the future. So if you guys have interest in training on humidification and ventilation, please stay tuned for those. We'll be happy to share our knowledge on our products in the future. So the role of HVAC systems in airborne infection transmission. So the purpose of the HVAC system is obviously for heating and cooling the home, but what that does is that cycles air throughout your home. So what is in your home is going to continue being circulated around, and that does bring up importance to have the best air quality in your home that you possibly can, especially in times now with the airborne infection stuff going on with other diseases and all that stuff. So one thing we can talk about quickly is droplet nuclei transfer here. So one cough can generate up to 3,000 droplets. Talking for 5 minutes can generate about 3,000 droplets as well. Singing can do about 3,000 droplets in 1 minute, and sneezing can be about tens of thousands. It can spread up to 10 feet away for individuals, with initial velocities being up to 10 meters or 100 meters per second, excuse me. Now, why do we talk about this? Is because it's just increasingly important, especially today, for having good air quality in the home and how easily that can spread around with multiple people being in your home. So how does a UV light work in a ducted system? So UV light will infiltrate microorganism cell walls, which then is able to reduce the reproduction of those cells or microorganisms. So it'll neutralize airborne pathogens when it's in contact with the UV light, and it requires high concentration of UVC required. So what that means is that it's the longer exposure of UV light, the better in some cases. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that later in this presentation here. But it will neutralize the coil surface as well, constant contact with the UV rays, and then will prevent growth of things like mold on the coil as well. So kind of picture on the right there shows what can happen when UV light is shining onto a microorganism. It's able to break that DNA, which then reduces the possibility for it to reproduce or grow in a system, if you will. So again, how does it work in a ducted system, or why use that UV light? So there's bacteria, mold, viruses, plenty of things going on in your home being kind of circulated around, and that exists in your HVAC system as well. So mold can grow on your AC coils, and then that is just kind of shifted around the home through the duct system. And so airborne bacteria can be in your HVAC system. So germicidal UV light works by scrambling the DNA inside the cells of microbes, which prevents them from reproducing. So the figure on the right there kind of shows the nucleus of the cell, and having the DNA in the center there, and using UVC to treat that cell is able to scramble the DNA, prevent it from reproducing and spreading within your system. So now, who needs UV light, or who can benefit from UV light? Children and elderly is one group that can. It's beneficial for anyone really who has a weakened immune system. Humid climates can be beneficial, or UV light can be beneficial for humid climates as well, just because when you have too little or too much humidity, some bacteria and viruses and things of that nature can really thrive in that environment. So both of those environments, really, it's critical to have some sort of air purification device or some way to really control that growth so that you are in the best shape that you can be. And in general, really anyone who wants cleaner air can benefit from UV light and UV treatment. So there's a few different UV or ultraviolet wavelengths. So there's UVA, UVB, C, and then UVV. UVC is the one that we'll be focusing on here, and that's really the treatment that our lights will use. They have different purposes, but that is what we'll be focusing on today. So UV light is not a new product, if you will. UV light has been around for decades. It's been used frequently in hospitals, restaurants, nursing homes, water treatment facilities, manufacturing clean rooms. All sorts of places have been able to benefit from UV light to clean surfaces and air around the world. So it's not new technology, but it has definitely had increasing awareness in the last 2 years, especially. And we'd like to continue to grow that knowledge and talk about it a little bit more. So what Honeywell Home branded UV options do we have? So we have 5 different light options here on the screen with the part numbers below. So on the left side here, we have our UV 100. So those are 100 volt UV options. And we also have our 24 volt or UV 2400 options. So depending on which one you have, we have 2 bulb models. And then for our UV 2400, we have one that is just the bulb, and then we have one that is the bulb and the air bright model as well. So the UV 2400 U5000 is our UV light with our air bright odor absorption package. So what is air bright? So air bright is that guy that's sitting on the top there. It improves overall air quality, comfort, and HVAC efficiency in the home. The same kind of light is tried and true air cleaning solution in hospitals, restaurants, and other places where clean air is crucial, like we just talked about. Odor causing and potentially toxic volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, accumulate in interior spaces. And those guys are the source of most odors in the home. So what the air bright does is that helps remove those odors from passing by the light as well. So VOCs passing through air bright are broken down, and it reduces and removes bacteria, viruses, and mold. So the UV lamp plus the air bright work through photocatalytic oxidation reactions, which breaks down VOCs into simpler components, which in this case would be water vapor and carbon dioxide, which is the same thing that we as humans exhale when we breathe. So that is all that is being emitted back into the air. A good way to think about this as well is a catalytic converter on a car. It basically will treat any of the unburnt fuel or any of the toxins that our cars will produce and make it so it's a little bit safer for us to breathe. The air bright is doing the same sort of thing and just breaking down any of the VOCs that are going through our HVAC system that we would be breathing and break it into things that aren't as harmful for us. So that will help the source of a lot of the odors in the home. And then the UV light being on the coil will also help keep that clean and prevent mold from growing on that, which also is not the healthiest for us to breathe in. So that picture there on the left is a good example of one of our ways that we recommend to have the air bright or the UV light installed in a home, and one of our best practices. So as I talked about a couple slides ago, we have a couple different options for our 24 volt systems. We have our UV 2400 U1000, which is just the UV light. Now that keeps the coil clean, and it does help reduce viruses and bacteria from the air passing by the light. Then we have our, if this is a good, better, best, this would be kind of like our best option, which is our U5000 kit. Now that comes with the UV light and also the air bright. So that keeps the coil clean, reduces viruses and bacteria from passing by the light, just like the one above does, but it also does help reduce odors and the VOCs passing through as well. So the installation, as I've said, it's a 24 volt or low volt installation. The 2 part numbers there listed are transformer part numbers, so that we do have as well. Most installs do not require an electrician, so it's a really simple installation that way. And the lamp is always on. So that is something that we do get asked, and we do have the lamp always on to always protect that coil. Can mount it internally or externally, as it's held on with magnets. And then preventative maintenance, the lamp is to be replaced yearly. That doesn't necessarily mean that the lamp will be burnt out, but it will be out of its peak efficiency range. So we do recommend replacing that yearly. Now the air bright, on the other hand, does not need to be replaced. That can stay in there for the life of the UV light itself. The lamp replacement is super simple. You can just turn the socket and pull out the lamp, and there is a built-in micro switch which will turn off the lamp for your safety. So you don't have to worry about actually seeing the light. And as you can see there on the image, you can also see the UV light through that little socket as well. So you can tell that the lamp is on without having to look at it and potentially damage your eyes. So how effective are your UV lights in reducing viruses? So the UV air purifier with the Air Bright odor absorption system deactivates and neutralizes airborne contaminants like mold, bacteria, and viruses in a ducted system. We suggest installing the UV Air Bright system on both the return and the supply side of the furnace. The UV disinfection systems for HVAC are an ideal proactive measure to complement proper filtration. So we will also get into the filtration side later on in the presentation, but as we've talked about a little bit here, best practice is to have the a UV light on both sides of the furnace, if you will. So one on the supply and one on the return side, and then also have a proper filtration set up as well, just to have the best possible air purification system that you can have. Especially since we're spending more time in the home, it's even more important than ever to make sure that we're breathing the best air that we can. So another thing to kind of think about, especially thinking about how much water we drink and how much air we drink. We drink 2 quarts of water per day. We worry about that constantly. Everywhere we go, we're making sure that we are at least carrying or drinking water in some way, shape, or form. But the same sort of thing goes for breathing. We breathe about 20,000 quarts of air per day. And we're not as concerned with that. Do we care about that in the same way? How should we think of that? So that's something to kind of think about a little bit. We care so much about the water we drink, but we breathe a lot more than we drink any fluids. So that should be more important, but fewer than 1 in 10 homes report using some sort of air filtration, electronic air cleaner, or UV or media air treatment system. So that is something that is very important for us, and we want to bring more awareness to that here. So other solutions that clean the air. The average person breathes about 20,000 times per day, as we said, so helping homeowners to reduce particles remains our priority. Whole house media and electronic air cleaners can capture a significant amount of airborne particles as they pass through this system compared to the standard 1-inch furnace filter. This is another good time to talk about our 10-year ultra clean coil guarantee that we've got as well. We've got our F300 electronic air cleaner there pictured, as well as our UV light with Air Bright. If you add both of those guys, we have a 10-year guarantee that your coil will stay clean. So we believe in our products and know that they work, so we can have that guarantee there. But jumping into it a little bit more with the filtration offering. So this is a kind of good, better, best setup right here. So we have on the left our F100, that's our MERV 11 filter. That would be kind of a good, if you will, air quality system in this sense. There's no electricity, it's just the filter. Same with the F200, MERV 13. But then we also have our F300 electronic air cleaner. Now, if this was a good, better, best, that would be our best offering that we've got with that sense, pairing that with the UV light, especially to make it even better. But we have that renewable filter, and you just wash that guy out. You don't have to replace anything, and has that narrow cabinet and has the lowest pressure drop. So 3 characteristics to balance with filtration. So we have efficiency, how much is captured, what's that MERV rating. We have the filter life, how much will it hold, how long will it last, and the pressure drop, how much air is restricted. And that's something that is increasingly important as well, is not every system is built to have the highest MERV rating filter in it. That will cause the static pressure to go up too high. So have to be mindful of that, but people want to have the highest MERV rating filter that they can have in their home without hurting anything. So what is a MERV rating? As I'm sure at least many of you guys know, if not everyone, the MERV rating is the minimum efficiency reporting value. It's a rating scale from 1 to 16. The higher the number, the more it will capture. This is defined by ASHRAE, and the MERV is only a measure of efficiency. So it doesn't measure anything with pressure drop, and it doesn't measure anything with the effective filter life. So, and it is only technically for media air cleaners. So that's why for the F300, we say it's an approximate 12 to 16 rating, because technically electronic air cleaners do not get a MERV rating. So media air cleaners get better as they load. So the minimum is easy to define. So it will get more efficient at catching things, if you will, but the static pressure will continue to drop, or increase. So you do not want to have a super dirty filter, even though it will be more efficient at catching things. And the opposite is the case for the electronic air cleaners. They get worse over time as these cells get coated. So what is a micron? A micron is very small. It is 1/1000th of a millimeter or 1/1,000,000th of a meter. So 1 millimeter would be 1,000 microns. A couple other examples, a sheet of paper is 100 microns, and a human hair is about 75 microns. So how do MERV ratings compare with effectiveness? What does that mean in terms of a micron? So as we said earlier, the best solution, the F300, is MERV rating of about 12 to 16. F200 is about a 13 MERV rating, and the F100 is an 11 MERV rating. And then your standard 1-inch furnace filter is anywhere between a 1 to a 4. So what does that mean? Now those microns, a human hair is about 75 microns. That's not even on this chart here in the bottom right. Anywhere from 3 to 10 microns, depending on the MERV rating, they have increased efficiency there. But one thing to note is once you get into the 0.3 micron to 1 micron, the efficiency drops significantly. And that's where it really starts to matter, having that higher MERV rating and that efficiency being a bit higher there. One thing to note as well is your air purification, whether that be filtration or UV, can only actually be effective when the system fan is on or the fan is on circulate. If there's no air moving through the system, nothing is getting captured in your air purification setup. So that is something to be mindful of as well. But back to your microns. So we've got group 1 on the left side of that chart next to the MERV rating. That would be anything from bacteria, tobacco smoke, smog. But you can see you don't have efficient capture of those particles until you get to about MERV 13. So group 1, you're kind of waiting until you get to MERV 13 to really do anything about. But on that group 2, which is the 1 to 3 micron size, which is your mold, your dander, allergens, start getting effective around about your MERV 9. So is something to think about with having that efficiency with the MERV filter and making sure that you understand how small some of these microns can be, or the micron sizes for the particles, to make sure that the efficiency rating of the filter is there. So how much is captured? So with the MERV rating here, again, the definition up on the top, but basically just a quick overview. The MERV 6, you'll get that lint, household dust, pollen in your 1-inch fiberglass filter, your low cost 4-inch filter, that's about a MERV 8. You'll also get dust mites and mold spores. 11, you'll also get pet dander, smoke, smog, and cough and sneeze particles. And then your MERV 13, you're also starting to get into that bacteria and virus carriers. So again, increasingly important to know the MERV rating and start to look at the efficiencies of those filters. So what Honeywell home branded media filtration options do we have? So with the F100, we have 6 sizes, and the F200, we have 4 sizes. So as you can see there, F100F, and then for the most part afterwards, it will be the size of the filter, and with an exception of the bottom 2. So the 25 by 20 and the 25 by 22, it's a different number there. So it is something that you can rely on most of the time, but don't get too carried away with it, with the last 4 being this size. So be extra careful there with the last 2, but it is a general thing that you can look at there. Now, our last 4 sizes for the F300 are also listed here. We have 16 by 20, 16 by 25, 20 by 20, and 20 by 25. And that will come with a pre-filter and a post-filter. Couple other things to note is that we do have other filter options and resources as well. So we do have pop-up filters, we have replacement filters, and we have some return grill filters as well. And on our Resideo Pro site, as well as our customer.resideo.com site, we do have a filter replacement selection guide that does have the life of the filter on it. It has the sizes, the pressure drops, as well as the efficiency MERV rating as well, and a little bit more about the filters. So I encourage you guys to go look at that if you're interested and find a little bit more about our filter options. But our best practice is to make sure that you have the system fan set on or circulate to allow the air to go through the system there, as well as make sure that you have a good filtration as well as purification system in your home. So best practice would be to have both, but if you are unable to do that, at least be mindful of the MERV ratings as well as the benefits of UV light.
Thanks so much, Tegan. Appreciate you going through this UV and air filtration training with us today. If any of you are interested in finding out more information about the products and the accessories that were covered today, you can find that information at our Resideo Pro website. We're going to transition into answering some common questions that our sales and our support teams get regarding our air purification and our filtration products. And I just wanted to say a quick reminder, if you do have any questions that was covered, that wasn't covered in anything that was reviewed today, make sure that you take a few moments and enter that information into that Q&A feature that's in your Zoom controls. And we'll do our best to answer any questions in the time that we have remaining. We're going to have John Battaglia, who is part of our Resideo National Account Sales team, jump in here and help with some of these common questions today as well. Thanks for being with us here today, John. Maybe.
Thanks for having me on. That mute button seems to get us all at the weird times.
There we go.
All right, John, so I've got a couple of questions for you that I can throw your way. So does the UV lamp cycle, or is it always on?
So the answer to that is it actually depends on the model. So let's start. We talked a lot about the UV 2400. That one will be on all the time. So that'll be a constant light coming out of it. You'll notice it's blue. You can see that through we give you an hourglass, like an eyeglass to peer in that'll protect your eyes, and also through the socket. But depending on the model of the UV 100s, which were the white ones with the blue knobs that you saw earlier, Those depend on pressure. So a couple of models there will, when it notices the airflow is going over on the return side, then they will light on and off. Just depends on the model.
Awesome. How often does the AirBright UV treatment system need to be replaced for our UV 2400?
That is a lifetime product. It never needs to be changed or replaced. So it'll continuously work through the life of the product.
Okay. Will the UV lamp turn off when it needs to be replaced?
No. So in the case, let's go back to the UV 2400 again. It'll always be on. It will always be blue. So the color does not indicate. So we recommend replacing on time base. Give you an idea kind of how that all works is that UVC that we're doing, the range is most powerful during the first year. And then after that, it'll start to diminish. So the best practice is to replace after the year, but no, the lamp will always be on and it'll always show blue.
Okay. Can this product be installed on ductboard?
Yes, it can. There's a special adapter that's required for ductboard, so you can't just mount straight up to it. The reasoning would be the weight, but we have and we have this later in the slides. We'll show you the part number, but there's a UV 2400 XDBA1, which is our ductboard adapter, and from there, all it does, sold separately, hooks right up, and you're good to go.
Perfect. How safe is this product for my family?
It's a very safe product. We've been using it, as I said, for decades in very sensitive type areas. It's actually an improvement for you, for the family, but also know that it does not create any ozones. You saw the spectrum earlier, and when you start getting higher on that scale, ozone, which is known to be, not good for the young and the elderly particularly, or if a weakened immune or lung system. So. But no, it's very, very safe. It's a great way of controlling odors and smells and VOCs, which are the volatile organic compounds, all those things that are kind of in our air that we're actually able to control as opposed to cover up like other products that might be out on the market.
Perfect. Where is the AirBright UV treatment system available?
I'm going with the case that this is available through our trade distribution channel. If that's what if that's what that question is asking, so available through trade, so that's the best opportunity for families to get it. It's also lends more towards our professionals that can do the best possible job of doing the install.
Does it require a lamp shield?
So the answer is yes and no. So if all of your components within your system are UV rated plastics, like our humidifiers and filtration, stuff like that, no shield is needed, but you would need a shield if there's stuff that's just not protected inside the ductwork. So that's a best case is check see where it's going to go. The shield is needed on anything that has direct UVC contact. So just give you an idea, UVC doesn't work real efficiently when it bounces off things. So if you can kind of imagine that. So anything in direct light that is not treated plastic wise for it ultimately will break down using UVC if it's in the direct thing. So talked about earlier what happens when you match it up with a air filter box. If the UV light is within direct contact of a filter, it eventually, if you give it enough time, now it's not going to happen in 6 months or a year, but 10 things that don't get replaced, but eventually at some point, UV light would break those down. So again, just make sure you watch where you see where your direct contacts areas, make sure that they are, properly rated, and you should be okay.
Perfect. Got a couple more here. Can I wire it directly into the system transformer?
Yes and no. You got to check and see what your VA requirements are going on. For the most part, what my best practices would be that I recommend going with a second transformer, one of the two that are mentioned that we talked about earlier, AT120 and 140. That way you can control things that way. It's just the best practice. But yeah, if you've got enough left over, you can do that.
When do our media air cleaner filters need to be replaced?
Okay, so the media, depending on the size, so if it's a 1-inch filter, recommend every month. As you get up higher in the sizes, when you get up to the 4-inch media filter, like the F100s and 200s, then we're looking at 3 times a year. So all that, keep in mind of what's going on in your house. Do you have pets? Are you a heavy smoker? Is the different things going on in different houses? Not every house is the same, but think of it kind of like your system is the lungs of your house, and just whatever it's ingesting, the media filter does need to, will capture. So if you're in a house, like I said, with heavy dander and things like that, we recommend more often. But on average, there's the 4-inch filter has more surface area to catch with, therefore it will last longer. One thing I'd like to bring up from earlier when we were talking about our F100 and 200 boxes, what's great about them is that they're interchangeable. Once you've installed the box, if a customer wants to move up to, up in MERV rating, it's very easy to do. You don't need to replace the box, just the media filter that goes in. So you saw how we had 6 and 4 models, but know that all those models can go back and forth as depending on what what the house requirements are.
Perfect. And you got in this a little bit, but why can a media air cleaner's filter last longer than typical 1-inch throwaway type?
Okay, so that's a really good question, and the reason is I think of the 1-inch filter is like having kind of, we're all getting used to that, right? Wearing a mask, and it's straight flat, and then once all those areas for air to pass through clog up, it's done, and then your pressure drop, and then it restricts the air moving through your system. A 4-inch media filter is actually accordioned, and there's a lot more surface area in there as it moves back and forth. So air has its ability to pass through, but also able to catch both smaller sizes, depending on the MERV, and then a greater amount because it has more surface area in which to filter with. Some media, some 1-inch filters that are out there, you can pretty much see through, that you're really not catching much there. But when you get into the bigger filters, there's just more surface area to gather more material.
Perfect. Then the last one that we've got for common questions, is there a private label program for IAQ products?
Yes, we do. There's 2 examples on the screen. We have basically the capability where, whether it's a humidifier, dehumidifier, filtration, UV light. If you're a member of our Pro Perks program, we have the capability for you to provide you with your company's logo on a sticker that actually there's a panel on all those products that allows you to fix it, so it looks like it's actually there. It gives you, depending on what you want, up to 3 or 4 lines of information you can put there, because most likely, as we know, that you want this kind of stuff to be in the background until something's not exactly right, and then going to see your information will be the first number that they'll call before before looking up competitors. So it's really great there. I tell you to reach out to your distributor. They'll know how to do the process of getting you the stickers, and depending on other items like our thermostats, we actually print your information right on the product. So depending on what we got there, but your distributor salesperson or counter person will be able to help you through that process. It's pretty simple, and on some products it's no charge.
And this is another time too to think about I know we're not talking about it today, but our thermostat private label program as well, being able to pair that with the IAQ products as well. It's a great way to make sure that you are the face of your customer's system and make sure that they know who to get in front of or who to call when something were to go wrong, or when it's time for a yearly service or a season tune-up, if you will.
No, absolutely.
So a couple more things, as John was talking about too. We've got all of our part numbers up here for the things that we talked about. We have our 2 transformer SKUs or part numbers on there as well. And then our lamp, duct board, and other UV replacement items on the screen too. It looks like we do have a couple more questions coming in here. So you got a question, will the UV light be able to handle the temperatures of furnaces on heat mode if installed in the supply air plenum?
I always recommend that you go to the install manual, which will give you the desired, basically space between. Everything's rated there for a high temperature, so you should be okay. But just keep it in mind that some of the criteria and specs on it on your distance between. But case in point, so let's take a look at the first three white ones that are on there, the UV 100s. Those are mainly in return type spaces. But the UV 2400, which can go over the coil, you should be no problem there on temperature.
Perfect.
Okay. Quiet group here today, but great questions. Thanks for walking through all of those common questions, Tegan and John, and for providing another great training. Before we wrap up just a little bit early, is there anything else you'd like to cover today with everybody? And if not,
I appreciate the opportunity to go over this with anyone. And I'd like to give a shout out to our TMs that are in the field and your Resideo personnel. They're out to help you. Please reach out to us. We're glad we're out here to help in any type of way, because that's the support that we provide.
Great. Thanks so much for that shout out there, John. And if you do come up or think of a question after the close of our training and you don't know who your local Resideo sales rep is, feel free to send an email to homes.university@resideo.com, and we will make sure to route your question to your local Resideo sales rep to make sure that gets answered. And, to kind of follow up on what Tegan and John covered today in our training, something that's very important to us here at Resideo. And we want to make sure that you have access to in-depth trainings on our products. And we're going to have lots more of that to share with you as the rest of the year winds down. But I wanted to make sure that you are aware of our online learning platform, where we do have several in-depth technical and sales training modules available for you. You can access this online training catalog by visiting the training page on our Resideo Pro website. If you are a Pro Perks member and you have a Pro Portal account, you will be able to access this training catalog. The first time that you do access the training, you'll be asked to create an account, and going forward, you'll log into that Pro Portal account to access those trainings. And currently, we've got about 20 online learning modules available, including modules regarding our entire humidification portfolio. As fall is here and humidifiers are going to be coming into play, want to make sure that you have the right information about our humidification portfolio. We also have modules regarding our Prestige IAQ thermostat, as well as our T10 thermostat. These trainings cover everything from technical to installation details, and they also show you how to identify the right customer to sell these products. We're very excited to add this online learning catalog to our training offerings for all of you. So as you have time throughout your week and you're interested in more in-depth trainings, we encourage you to sign up for a Resideo Pro Portal account to access these trainings. And then just another reminder, if you are a Resideo Pro Perks member, you'll receive training credit when you enroll and take those online training courses as well. On our next slide here, you'll see the link to our website, resideo.com/webinars, to find out more information about our upcoming sessions. If you search by either the HVAC or the plumbing tabs, you'll find the details for our September and our October sessions. And additionally, we do record each of these sessions, and you can find those recordings on this same website when you filter for webinars with the label on demand. And then one last reminder to our contractors who did not include your NATE ID number on your registration form and you'd like to receive credit for today's session, make sure that you send an email with your first name, your last name, your NATE ID number, and the date of the session that you attended to homes.university@resideo.com. Make sure to send that within 1 week of today's live webinar in order to receive credit for attending today's live training. And then 2 final things to note: once our training session ends today, you are going to be prompted to complete a survey regarding our webinar session. Make sure that you take a few moments to provide us with your feedback on the training you participated in today. We are very interested in your feedback, not only on today's session, because we do use that feedback to help us create future trainings, but we also want to hear your feedback on other topics that you'd like to see us cover in the coming weeks. And then finally, you'll receive an email from us in just a few days that includes some follow-up information on the products that were reviewed today, as well as a link to the website for information on our future webinars as well. Again, thank you all for joining today's Resideo webinar session. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next week.